For thousands of years they have stood silent against the desert sky. Monuments so massive, so perfectly constructed, that for centuries the world refused to believe human hands alone could have built them. They are the pyramids of Giza, and they are just one chapter in the most extraordinary story any civilization has ever written. Ancient Egypt endured for over 3,000 years, longer than any other great civilization in human history. Its pharaohs ruled as living gods. Its artists created works of breathtaking beauty. Its engineers constructed monuments that have never been surpassed. Its priests developed one of the most complex religious systems the world has ever known. And yet, despite all of this magnificent civilization eventually fell, conquered, absorbed, and ultimately transformed beyond recognition by a succession of foreign powers. But how did this remarkable civilization rise from the banks of a single river in northeastern Africa to become the greatest power of the ancient world? Who were its pharaohs? What did its people believe? And how, after 3,000 years of extraordinary achievement, did it finally come to an end? This is the entire history of ancient Egypt. To understand ancient Egypt, you must first understand the Nile. The Nile River is the longest river in the world, stretching over 6,650 kilometers from its sources deep in Central Africa, northward through the Sahara Desert, before emptying into the Mediterranean Sea. And it was this extraordinary river that made Egyptian civilization not just possible, but inevitable. In the prehistoric period before the rise of Egyptian civilization, the land that would become Egypt was largely desert hot, arid, and inhospitable. But each year between June and September, the Nile flooded its banks, depositing a rich layer of dark, fertile silt across the surrounding floodplain that the ancient Egyptians called the Black Land. This annual flooding transformed the Nile Valley into one of the most agriculturally productive regions in the ancient world. Crops grew in extraordinary abundance in the rich, dark soil left behind by the receding floodwaters. The river itself provided fresh water for drinking and irrigation, abundant fish, and a highway for trade and communication that connected the entire length of the country. The ancient Egyptians recognized the Nile as the source of all life and incorporated it deeply into their religious beliefs. They worshipped Hapi, the god of the annual flood, and attributed the river's life-giving power to divine intervention. The first human settlements along the Nile date back to at least 6,000 BC, small agricultural communities that grew crops, raised livestock, and developed increasingly sophisticated social structures over the following millennia. By around 3,500 BC, two distinct kingdoms had emerged along the Nile. In the north, where the Nile spreads into a wide delta before entering the Mediterranean, was Lower Egypt. In the south, where the river runs through narrow desert valleys, was Upper Egypt. These two kingdoms developed their own distinct cultures, symbols, and rulers. Lower Egypt was symbolized by the red crown and the cobra. Upper Egypt by the white crown and the vulture. For centuries, these two kingdoms existed separately, trading, competing, and occasionally fighting one another. But around 3100 BC, everything changed. Around 3100 BC, a ruler of Upper Egypt, known to later tradition as Narmer, and sometimes identified with the legendary King Menes, united the two kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt under a single ruler for the first time in history. This unification is considered one of the most significant political events in all of human history. It created the world's first large-scale unified nation-state, a centralized kingdom stretching over 1,000 kilometers along the Nile Valley, governed by a single divine ruler. The ruler of this unified Egypt took the title of pharaoh, a word derived from the ancient Egyptian per-aa, meaning great house. The pharaoh was not merely a king in the conventional sense. He was believed to be a living god, the earthly embodiment of Horus, the falcon-headed god of kingship, and upon his death, he was believed to become one with Osiris, the god of the dead. This divine status gave the pharaoh absolute authority over every aspect of Egyptian life. He controlled the land, the people, the military, and the religious institutions. The entire administrative apparatus of the Egyptian state existed solely to serve his will. One of the most remarkable achievements of this early period was the development of hieroglyphic writing, one of the earliest writing systems in human history. Developed around 3200 BC, hieroglyphs were used initially for record-keeping and administrative purposes, tracking grain supplies, recording royal decrees, and documenting religious rituals. Over time, hieroglyphic writing evolved into one of the most sophisticated and beautiful writing systems ever developed, capable of expressing complex religious and philosophical ideas with extraordinary precision. The early dynastic period, spanning roughly from 3100 to 2686 BC, saw Egypt develop its characteristic cultural and artistic traditions. The distinctive style of Egyptian art, with its combination of front-facing and side-facing figures, its strict hierarchical scaling, and its flat two-dimensional representation, emerged during this period and would remain virtually unchanged for the next 3,000 years. Memphis, located near the apex of the Nile Delta, was established as the first capital of unified Egypt and became one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. The period known as the Old Kingdom, spanning roughly from 2686 to 2181 BC, represents one of the most extraordinary chapters in all of human history. It was during this period that the ancient Egyptians constructed the monuments that have made their civilization immortal. The first pyramid was built during the reign of Pharaoh Djoser around 2650 BC. Designed by Djoser's chief architect Imhotep, who would later be deified for his genius. The step pyramid at Saqqara was the first large-scale stone structure ever built in human history. Rising in 6 massive steps to a height of 62 meters, it represented a revolutionary leap in architectural ambition and engineering capability. But the step pyramid was merely the beginning. Over the following century, Egyptian architects and engineers refined the pyramid design through a series of increasingly ambitious projects. The Bent Pyramid and the Red Pyramid at Dashur, built during the reign of Pharaoh Sneferu, represent crucial experimental steps in the development of the true pyramid form. Then came the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, known to the Greeks as Cheops, and the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Built around 2560 BC, the Great Pyramid stands 138 meters tall, a height it would retain as the tallest man-made structure in the world for over 3,800 years. It contains approximately 2.3 million stone blocks, weighing between 2.5 and 80 tons each. The precision of its construction is staggering. The 4 sides of its base are aligned with the 4 cardinal directions of the compass with an accuracy of less than 1/10 of a degree. The logistics of its construction were equally extraordinary. Modern estimates suggest that between 20,000 and 30,000 workers labored on the pyramid over approximately 20 years. Recent archaeological discoveries have revealed that these workers were not slaves, as was long believed, but skilled laborers who were paid in food, medical care, and accommodation. Graffiti left by work gangs on interior stone blocks even reveals their proud nicknames such as Friends of Khufu. The Great Pyramid was followed by the Pyramid of Khafre and the Pyramid of Menkaure, together with the enigmatic Great Sphinx, which guards the Giza Plateau to this day. These 3 pyramids, along with the Sphinx, form one of the most recognizable and awe-inspiring landscapes in all of human history. The religious purpose of the pyramids was clear. They were tombs designed to protect the physical remains of the pharaoh and facilitate his transformation into a divine being in the afterlife. The afterlife was central to ancient Egyptian religious belief, and enormous resources were devoted to preparing for it. The Old Kingdom collapsed around 2181 BC, following a period of drought, famine, and political fragmentation known as the First Intermediate Period. For over a century, Egypt was divided between competing regional rulers, its central authority shattered, its monuments neglected, and its people suffering. But Egypt recovered. Around 2055 BC, a powerful ruler named Mentuhotep II reunified Egypt under his authority, inaugurating the period known as the Middle Kingdom, which would last until approximately 1650 BC. The Middle Kingdom is often regarded as a classical age of Egyptian culture, a period of remarkable artistic achievement, economic prosperity, and territorial expansion. Egyptian literature flourished during the Middle Kingdom, producing masterpieces such as The Story of Sinuhe, a tale of an Egyptian official who flees to Canaan and eventually returns home, which is considered one of the finest works of ancient Egyptian literature. The Middle Kingdom pharaohs also expanded Egypt's territory southward into Nubia, modern Sudan, establishing a series of massive mud brick fortresses along the Nile to control trade routes and protect Egypt's southern border. Trade networks expanded dramatically during this period, bringing luxury goods from as far away as Lebanon, the Aegean, and sub-Saharan Africa into Egypt's markets. The wealth generated by this trade funded magnificent building projects, including the construction of a new capital at Ichtawi near the Fayum oasis. However, the Middle Kingdom eventually weakened, and around 1650 BC, Egypt experienced its second major collapse, this time triggered by the invasion of a mysterious people known as the Hyksos. The Hyksos, whose name means rulers of foreign lands, were a Semitic people from the Levant who had gradually migrated into Egypt's Nile Delta region over several generations. Taking advantage of Egypt's political weakness, they seized control of northern Egypt and established their own dynasty at their capital of Avaris. For the Egyptians, the Hyksos occupation was a profound cultural shock, the first time in their history that foreign rulers had controlled any part of their sacred land. The humiliation of Hyksos rule galvanized the Egyptian spirit. Around 1550 BC, a Theban prince named Ahmose I launched a military campaign that drove the Hyksos from Egypt entirely and reunified the country under native Egyptian rule. His victory inaugurated the New Kingdom, the most brilliant and powerful period in all of Egyptian history. The New Kingdom pharaohs learned crucial lessons from the Hyksos occupation. They built the most powerful military force Egypt had ever possessed, equipped with the horse-drawn chariots and composite bows that the Hyksos had introduced to Egypt, and they used this military force to create an empire. Pharaoh Thutmose III, often called the Napoleon of ancient Egypt, conducted 17 military campaigns during his reign, expanding Egyptian territory northward into Syria and Palestine, and southward deep into Nubia. At its maximum extent, the Egyptian Empire under Thutmose III stretched from the Euphrates River in present-day Syria to the Fourth Cataract of the Nile in present-day Sudan. The wealth that flowed into Egypt from this vast empire funded a building program of staggering ambition. The great temple complexes at Karnak and Luxor, built and expanded over centuries by successive New Kingdom pharaohs, are among the largest religious buildings ever constructed. Their towering columns, massive pylons, and avenue of sphinxes represent the pinnacle of ancient Egyptian architectural achievement. The New Kingdom also produced two of the most famous individuals in all of ancient history. The first was the pharaoh Akhenaten, who ruled from approximately 1353 to 1336 BC and launched one of the most radical religious revolutions in history. Akhenaten abandoned Egypt's traditional pantheon of gods and declared that there was only one true god, Aten, the sun disk. He closed the temples of the other gods, redirected their revenues to Aten, and built an entirely new capital city called Akhetaten at a site now known as Amarna. His religious revolution was deeply unpopular with the powerful priesthood and was completely reversed after his death. Akhenaten's son was a boy king whose name has become the most recognized in all of ancient Egyptian history, Tutankhamun. He came to the throne at approximately 9 years of age and died at approximately 19. His significance in ancient history was relatively minor. But the discovery of his intact tomb by British archaeologist Howard Carter in November 1922, filled with an extraordinary treasure of golden artifacts, made him the most famous pharaoh of them all. The greatest warrior pharaoh of the New Kingdom was Ramesses II, known as Ramesses the Great, who ruled for an extraordinary 66 years, from 1279 to 1213 BC. His reign produced some of the most magnificent monuments in Egyptian history, including the great temples at Abu Simbel, carved directly into the sandstone cliffs of Nubia. The famous Battle of Kadesh against the Hittite Empire in 1274 BC, which resulted in the world's earliest known peace treaty, was one of the defining moments of his reign. After the death of Ramesses the Great, the New Kingdom entered a prolonged period of decline. The later New Kingdom pharaohs faced mounting challenges, invasions by mysterious sea peoples from the Mediterranean, internal power struggles between the pharaoh and the increasingly powerful priesthood of Amun at Karnak, economic difficulties, and a series of weak rulers unable to hold the empire together. By around 1069 BC, the New Kingdom had collapsed, fragmenting into the Third Intermediate Period, during which Egypt was divided between competing dynasties, ruling from different cities. For the next 4 centuries, Egypt would never again achieve the unity and power of the New Kingdom. The Third Intermediate Period eventually gave way to the Late Period, during which Egypt fell under a series of foreign rulers for the first time since the Hyksos. The Nubians, whose ancestors had been conquered and ruled by Egypt for centuries, now turned the tables. The Nubian king Piye invaded Egypt from the south around 747 BC and established the 25th dynasty, ruling a combined kingdom of Nubia and Egypt from their capital at Napata. The Assyrians, the dominant power of the ancient Near East, invaded Egypt in 671 BC under King Esarhaddon, and again in 667 BC under Ashurbanipal, sacking Thebes and establishing Assyrian control over the country. After the Assyrians withdrew, a brief renaissance of native Egyptian power occurred under the 26th dynasty, known as the Site period, during which Egypt enjoyed renewed prosperity and a deliberate revival of the great artistic and architectural traditions of earlier periods. But this native revival was not to last. In 525 BC, the Persian king Cambyses II invaded Egypt and conquered it, incorporating the country into the vast Achaemenid Persian Empire as a province called a satrapy. Egypt chafed under Persian rule and periodically regained its independence, but Persian control was reimposed multiple times over the following 2 centuries. Then, in 332 BC, a young Macedonian conqueror arrived at the gates of Egypt, and everything changed forever. When Alexander the Great marched into Egypt in 332 BC, he was welcomed not as a conqueror, but as a liberator, a deliverer from the hated Persian rule. Alexander visited the Oracle of Amun at the oasis of Siwa, deep in the Libyan desert, where, according to tradition, the oracle proclaimed him the son of the god Amun. He founded the city of Alexandria on the Mediterranean coast, which would become one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, home to the famous Library of Alexandria, and a center of learning and culture that attracted scholars from across the known world. When Alexander died in Babylon in 323 BC, his enormous empire was divided among his generals. Egypt fell to Ptolemy, one of Alexander's most trusted commanders, who established the Ptolemaic dynasty that would rule Egypt for the next 3 centuries. The Ptolemaic pharaohs were Macedonian Greeks by origin, but they adopted Egyptian religious customs, took Egyptian titles, and built magnificent temples in the traditional Egyptian style. The temples at Edfu, Dendera, and Philae, some of the best preserved ancient Egyptian temples that survive today, were built during the Ptolemaic period. The last and most famous of the Ptolemaic rulers was Cleopatra VII, whose name has echoed through history for over 2,000 years. Cleopatra was highly intelligent, politically astute, and reputedly extraordinarily charismatic. She was the only Ptolemaic ruler who actually bothered to learn the Egyptian language, speaking 9 languages in total. Cleopatra skillfully navigated the dangerous politics of the late Roman Republic, forming famous alliances first with Julius Caesar and then with Mark Antony, in a desperate attempt to preserve Egyptian independence against the overwhelming power of Rome. But the Battle of Actium in 31 BC shattered those hopes. The combined fleet of Cleopatra and Mark Antony was decisively defeated by the forces of Octavian Caesar's adopted son and heir. Mark Antony took his own life. Cleopatra, unwilling to be paraded through Rome as a prisoner, followed him. She died on August 12, 30 BC, the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt. With her death, Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire. The 3,000-year story of the pharaohs was over, but the legacy of ancient Egypt did not die with Cleopatra. It has never died. The ancient Egyptians gave the world some of its most enduring achievements. Their development of hieroglyphic writing laid groundwork for subsequent writing systems. Their mathematical and astronomical knowledge accumulated over millennia of careful observation fed directly into Greek science and through it into the entire Western scientific tradition. Their medical knowledge documented in papyri, such as the Edwin Smith papyrus, dating to around 1600 BC, shows a sophisticated understanding of anatomy, diagnosis, and treatment that was centuries ahead of other ancient civilizations. Their architectural achievements, the pyramids, the temples, the obelisks, have never been surpassed in terms of their combination of scale, precision, and longevity. The Great Pyramid of Giza remains one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the only one still standing today. Egyptian art, religion, and culture profoundly influenced the civilizations that succeeded them. Greek religion borrowed extensively from Egyptian theology. The concept of a dying and resurrecting god, central to the cult of Osiris, echoed through subsequent Mediterranean religious traditions. Egyptian obelisks were carried off to Rome, and later to Paris, London, and New York, where they still stand today as silent ambassadors of a vanished civilization. The decipherment of hieroglyphics by Jean-François Champollion in 1822, using the Rosetta Stone as his key, unlocked 3,000 years of Egyptian history that had been locked in silence for 15 centuries. Since then, the study of Egyptology has revealed a civilization of extraordinary complexity, creativity, and human depth. The ancient Egyptians were not mysterious alien builders or mythological giants. They were human beings, brilliant, creative, deeply religious, intensely human, who built something extraordinary on the banks of a river in northeastern Africa and left it for the world to wonder at forever. 3,000 years of history, 100 dynasties, hundreds of pharaohs, millions of lives, all preserved in stone, in paint, in papyrus, and in the silent golden treasures of the tombs waiting to tell their story to anyone willing to listen. This has been the entire history of ancient Egypt. If you liked the video, please like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.